Now, to a lot of people, a first-person Souls-like probably sounds like a tragedy waiting to happen. But honestly, I've always felt that it would be a really unique and interesting way for the genre to grow if a formula could be figured out that meshes the tight gameplay mechanics of a Souls-like with the first-person camera angle. But up until this point, it's been just a theory, something that sounds like it would be cool, but has never been proven to actually work. And then Valor Mortis entered the chat. Now, just to be completely upfront with you, the footage that you're watching, as well as what I'm going to be going over, is based on the playtest for Valor Mortis. And at the time of this recording, it's either wrapping up or already ended. So keep in mind that a lot could change between now and when the game actually launches. And I will be addressing some of the problems that the playtest has, but keep in mind that a lot of these things will be rectified, or at least more than likely rectified, at the launch of the full game. So Valor Mortis is, as you might expect, a first-person Souls-like game made by One More Level, the creators of the Ghost Runner series. So these guys are obviously experts at first-person games. The game is set in an alternate timeline within the Napoleonic era, and you play as a loyal soldier in Napoleon's army named William. But you end up being killed in the heat of battle, and the game begins with you being resurrected by some kind of unholy power, and upon awakening, you find a much different world than the one you died in. A world torn apart by some mysterious plague that is corrupting both the living and the dead. And that's about all we can gather from what is available so far. Now, while the quality of the story is something that is still kind of up in the air, we can't make very many judgments based off of just a small playtest. But what I will say is that this game's setting and era is something that's very unique in the genre. I don't think this has ever been done before, and it does set it apart right out of the gate. The whole kind of musket and saber 1800s kind of vibe, I don't know, it kind of works for me. But even with a great setting and assuming that the story is a good one, One More Level has still set out to make a Souls-like game. And Souls-likes live or die on their gameplay. So let's jump in and break down the mechanics of this game, how it works, how it plays, and talk about some major issues that need to be fixed. So obviously this is a first-person game, and the first question that probably comes to your mind is, does it work with Souls-like combat? And the answer to that is maybe. Let me start by explaining how the gameplay mechanics work in Valor Mortis. So basically you have a standard attack that is just a swing of your sword, and you also have a charged attack, which is a slower but more powerful swing, and then you also have a run attack. If you attack while you are sprinting, you will sort of lunge forward and do a quick attack. You also have a gun that you can aim and shoot with, and you also have some sort of spell or power. In the playtest it was like a fire spell. It's unclear if there are more than that though, but I'm betting there probably is. Defensively, you can dodge as well as perfect dodge if it is a red attack. So yes, there are color-coded attacks in this game as well. You can also block and parry with a riposte. Valor Mortis also uses a posture system. So if you deal damage or parry your opponent, it builds posture in the posture meter. And once that posture meter fills up, you can then perform a riposte. So similar to Sekiro, you don't get a riposte just from a single parry, but if you string parries and attacks together, you can build that posture meter and then go in for the big damage. And that's an important thing right there in and of itself. This game, unlike a lot of its peers, gives you a hefty reward for getting your riposte off. There is a good bit of damage that you do when you perform a riposte. It's not like what drives me crazy in a lot of other Souls-likes, where it's tough and you have to get the posture filled all the way up or whatever it might be, and then when you finally get your critical attack, it's like a little sliver of their health. It's annoying. But Valor Mortis doesn't do that, so it's good to see that they are rewarding their players. It also has a rally health system, so think Bloodborne or Lies of P. If you block attacks but not parry them, then you do take damage, but that damage is sort of grayed out a little bit, and then if you attack, you can regain that health based on the amount of damage you're able to deal. I've always loved this mechanic because I like playing very aggressively, and this is one way to encourage aggressive playstyles. Now, I mentioned the gun before, but it's important to note that some enemies will have big bulging spots on their bodies, looking like some kind of giant pimple, to be honest. And if you take your gun and shoot those, you will get increased damage and posture buildup. So it's a really cool way to encourage players to use both their melee and range ranged attacks together seamlessly. Because a lot of the weak spots on the front of the enemy, you can sort of just stand back and shoot. But when it comes to weak spots that might be positioned on the back of your enemy, you really have to get in there and deal damage with your sword, dodge out to the other side, and then shoot them from behind. So it creates a really interesting kind of skill mechanic that you have to learn. Overall, I would say the combat in Valor Mortis actually works. I think that they've figured out a way to mesh Souls-like with first person. So I gotta tip my hat to them on that. I can see what they're trying to do, and I think that they've figured something out that to this date, at least as far as I know, nobody else has been able to figure out. That is, when it's not glitching. So this brings me to the first big question or problem issue with the game, and that's the performance. Now I want to make this abundantly clear before we talk about this. This playtest is a pre-alpha build, which means that it is nowhere near finished and there's still a lot of polishing to be done. And believe me, you can tell. In my time, which I live streamed my playthrough through the playtest of this game, so you can go check that out if you want to, but in my time in the playtest, there was a lot of jank, a lot of glitches, a ton of frame rate drops. It was pretty much unplayable, I'm gonna be honest. In fact, I didn't even finish fighting the final boss of the playtest because I just couldn't do it anymore. It was way too frustrating. Anytime you would get close to the boss or close to an enemy and things really started to pop off, the frame rate would just tank and you would start moving like it's 1960. Were there even video games in 1960? Hold on, let me look at this. When was the first video game made? 1958. Ha! There was. It says here that the first video game was widely considered to be Tennis for Two. Actually, that game was probably smoother than what this was. Anyway, the point is that the playtest was atrocious when it comes to performance, and that's definitely something they're going to have to clean up, which I'm sure that they will. Like I said, it's a pre-alpha. I don't think this is any kind of alarm to be worried about. They will clearly put more polish into this game before it launches. The main reason I bring it up is because it's not always true that those things get fixed before the game actually launches. Unfortunately, we have seen plenty of games launch here recently with abysmal performance and they somehow made it out of the gate. But still, I don't think that we should be worried about this one. Another big question is the level design. Through the playtest, it opened up a little bit in some areas, and then it was very linear in other areas. So we have to kind of wait and see if their design for the game is going to be kind of more open and explorative, or is it going to be very linear and closed off? I think both ways could work, and it still could be a very good game regardless, but still, it is a question mark. Another thing is what kind of weapon selection and types will there be at launch? In the playtest, you had a basic saber, your revolver, and a fire spell. So what kind of other weapons will be in the game? Will we get different types of swords, or will it be only sabers? How many sabers will there be? How many spells will there be? How many guns will there be? Will we get big blunderbusts? Will we get an axe? You know, there's a lot of different things that we could get. We just don't know what those will be. Me personally, I'm always on the side of more weapon selection than less. So I hope that they add a bunch of different types of spells, guns, and weapons, and put plenty of options in each of those categories. Another thing, like I mentioned before, is the quality of the story. We will have to wait and see exactly what they've cooked up as far as the overall story arc and the world that they've built. But it's off to a good start if you ask me. And then the last big question is, when will it release? It is set for 2026. We don't know if that's going to be early or late 2026. I would hope it's towards the first half of the year, but that is something that we will have to wait and find out. Honestly, I had a great time playing this game. I think they have all the core parts that they need for a great experience, and they've figured something out that's unique within the Souls-like genre. All that's left now is execution. Can they take this unique setting and new method of Souls-like combat and turn it into a great game? That remains to be seen, and up to this point, nobody's been able to do that yet, at least as far as I know. So if you've played a Souls-like game that's first person in the past and it was a decent one, Drop it in the comments, let me know, because honestly, this is the first one I've ever heard of. But I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm interested to see your thoughts on Valor Mortis, so leave those down in the comments. Leave a like and sub if you did enjoy it and the video helped you out. And if it didn't, well, don't do anything. Just let me try again. Watch another video. In fact, I think I made a better one not too long ago, and I have another one coming soon.